weeks.
Been a couple weeks. How have you been doing?
Good. Yeah, good. Very busy. Middle of tax season. So
that's right.
busy,
Well,
busy.
the deadlines are coming up, I guess. You have returns due in the middle of June, right? Instead of end of April.
Actually, if personal return is due at the end of this month, actually on June 1, if you're self-employed, June 15. So
right.
Still got a little bit of time.
Okay, right. So I'm sure you've been.
Actually, can I give a little tip here, David, while we're on that topic?
Sure. Already?
So if you file late, if you're past now June 1, and if you're late, and if you're not self-employed, put $1 in as self-employed and file by June 15th, and you avoid the late filing penalty. Now that's got to be worth everybody's participation here today. So that's a little tip. We do it a lot. So if somebody comes in with their tax return and it's supposed to be filed under the old rules by April 30th, and we're late, and we're not yet to June 15th, we put $1 on their self-employed business statement, and there's no late filing penalty.
All right. Now, if you owe money, you're going to have
you
to
owe
pay
money. You owe money by April 30th under the old rules. Now you owe money September 1. So if you owe money on your tax return, don't be too quick to pay it, because you have till September 1 with no interest. So.
Okay, very good to know.
And we got to thank our Prime Minister for that one.
Okay, that's a great tip. Already we have tips and we haven't even started. So let me just do a quick summary of what the plan is for tonight. Jerry is going to be doing a session with me. Well, it's mainly Jerry's session. I'm going to ask some of the questions that people sent in. It's called Tax Talk. All right, because everybody wants to know about taxes, especially this time of year. So we're going to spend a little bit of time on that. And if you do have questions for Jerry, you can type them in the comments field, and we'll make every effort to get to your questions at some point during the show.
Yeah, maybe, can I just add something there,
sure.
Dave? Because I'm pretty excited about this little tax talk thing that I've introduced. And the reason is because I'm a strong believer that we should, you should all learn as much as you can about the tax system. It's our biggest expense of our life. So the more you learn, the better you understand our tax system, the better served you are. I have the benefit of working 10 years in Deloitte Touche tax department, so I've got a good background in tax. I'm still a self-employed licensed accountant in public practice, so we see a lot of tax stuff, and a lot of it is very relevant to what we're all doing. So this tax talk is an opportunity for me to share some of the things I've found out in the last week or two, some tax questions that people have asked that I, would be relevant to a real estate group. So it's a great opportunity to share that information. So I'm looking forward to it. So,
okay, that's excellent. And we are also looking forward to that. And we also have, then I'm going to do a quick thing, just 5 minutes talking about Centurion REIT, one of the best private real estate REITs around, in my opinion.
Oh, I'd like to second that one.
Okay.
I've been using Centurion REIT for a long time, and as most of you know, the way I run my Canadian investment services, we offer everything: private equity, mutual funds if need be, stocks, mortgages, insurance. We cover the whole gamut. And in the private equity world, there's not much better than Centurion REIT. And I'm going to let you, David. First of all, I should congratulate you, because you've 20 years in the mortgage business or something. And hey, there's Letitia. Hi, Letitia. How you doing?
Hi, gentlemen.
But anyway,
Hi, everyone.
20 years in the mortgage business. 20, is it 20, David? Many years.
15, but you could say 20.
Okay, well, you probably
you
had
round it up.
years before that thinking about mortgages. So let's say 20, 15 to 20. But anyway, now I understand you're an investment rep also in the private equity world. You're a licensed dealing rep, which is awesome. I'm a strong advocate for anybody holding a mortgage license, insurance license, real estate agents, accountants to add value to their practices by adding financial services. So my hats off to you, David. Kudos for jumping into the private equity world. So.
Thank you very much, Jerry. So I'm just going to give a brief talk on that, and then we have Letitia, who has just joined us. So at that point, a little bit later on, we're going to have Letitia. She's going to give us an insurance update. It's my understanding that the insurance companies are getting quite aggressive, looking for business and making things easier. Is that right, Letitia?
You could say so. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
happy
well,
to comment a bit more at length
okay.
when the time comes.
Okay, sounds good. And we also have Navtaj Chandoki. He's an educator and a good friend from flippingforprofit.ca. And we're going to talk to Navtaj. He runs these regular educational meetings. He's been doing this for, he started around the same time that I did in the mortgage business about 15 years ago. So I've watched him develop his group, and he's helping people to do amazing things. So we're going to talk about, you know, how you can get properties below market. And also somebody that I met at one of his meetings, Bruno Lopez, is an engineer and a very knowledgeable guy. We're going to talk to him about how you can get properties rezoned and flipped, and some of the things that he's working on. He converted a single family home recently to either a 6 or 7 plex. You can believe it.
Wow.
Yeah.
It must have been a big family home.
Well, we'll hear all about it. So he'll tell it. We actually have some of the plans, and we'll hear about some of the challenges and the kinds of things that he does to help people make these get the most out of their flips. Letitia, I'm just going to turn off your video for just a few minutes, and we're just going to do a little tax talk with Jerry, and we're going to bring you on very soon. Okay, great. All right. So
I encourage too, anybody is welcome throughout our broadcast here for the next hour and a half to ask any question they want that comes to mind. So this is your opportunity to ask any tax question you want. And I think we've had some that have been emailed in prior to this session. I think, David, right? Have we?
Yeah, we have some questions. Somebody wrote, I don't understand the question. Can you say again the reading? I'm sorry. I
Sorry, what's the question?
Well, the question is, can you say again the reading? But I don't know what that means. The reading. What reading?
Can
You
you
have to
say
elaborate.
again?
Abhishek, you got to expand the on your.
Yeah, I'm reading that too. As Abstract, you're gonna have to expand on that one.
Okay. All right, very good. So let me start with some of the questions that people sent in, because there were some good ones. Hold on a second, Letitia. Okay. All right. So the first question we have is somebody wrote, I will be needing to convert my RRSP into a RIF soon, but the current investments in my RRSP have dropped significantly. In fact, one of my RRSPs, I may have lost everything. That's sad. How does this work when I need to convert to a RIF?
Wow. Okay. That is sad if that's the case. Okay. So this, so as most of us know, we build up RSPs in our lifetime. We can convert them to a RIF anytime prior to 71, and then we must at the end of age, the year we turn 71, we must convert our RSP into a RIF. And there's a lot of misunderstanding on. People think they have to sell their RSPs or move their RSPs into a RIF, or that there's something happens that it makes it go from an RSP to a RIF. None of that is true. Whatever investments you have in your RSP remain there. A RIF just basically means the RSP is converted on paper to a mechanism that requires a payout, a minimum payout in the first year, and they average out the payouts till sometime in your 90s. So nothing really happens to your money. The plan just now has a requirement to pay out. So what happens is when you go from RSP to RIF, they value the RSP, and whatever the value is, you could have put $100,000 into your RSP, and let's say the market worked against you, you have 60,000 left. That's what they're going to take. They're going to base their minimum payout based on $60,000. They're going to base the minimum payout based on the current value of your RSP. Now, when there's a comment about the one RSP may have no value, I've actually seen that a few times. And the culprit were these Fortress products where they lost all their money in the RSP. So when they convert into the RIF, there's no value. So there's no payout, there's nothing. Okay, your RSP is gone. So that's the easy answer to that one. But what we see some interesting circumstances is when we really don't know the value. What if we have an investment and we don't know if we're ever going to get the money, or we might get some of the money, we just don't know the value. Now, it depends on the type of product you have in your RSP. Like, for example, a mutual fund is valued every day. So every day you're going to know what it is. So the day you convert to a RIF, you know what the value is. Some of these investments don't get valued every day. They get valued annually or every 2 years or 3 years. So the trustee of the RSP is going to take the value that's on the books. So if you bought a $100,000 Fortress product, let's use them since they're the culprits for a lot of these things, and you don't know what the value is, the trustee will base it on $100,000, and they'll design a payout. Now let's assume there's no money in the RSP, so you only had 100 grand, all of it went to a Fortress investment. There's no cash in your RSP. The trustee again will base it on the $100,000 unless you tell them different, and they need proof. You can't just phone them up and say, oh, sorry, my RSP is not worth anything. You have to have proof. And if they do base it on the 100,000, and if there's no money in the RSP, you're going to get a T4 RIF. You're going to get a tax slip that says you should have taken out that money. It's going to end up on your tax return, and you're going to get really upset because you didn't receive any money. Now you got to pay tax on money you didn't receive. So it's messy. So I could go deeper into it, but you know, the real answer to that question is it depends on what the real value of your RSP is at the time you convert it to a RIF. And you got to make sure that whatever investment you have in there is producing money inside of your plan so they can pay it out to you.
Okay, good answer, Jerry. Thank you for that. Here's a good one. There's a lot of good questions here, but I'm going to jump at this one because I like this one. I heard you now need to claim the sale of your principal residence. Is that true?
Oh, yeah, well, you always had to claim the sale of your principal residence. Just nobody did it because there's this rule that says your principal residence is exempt. So the rule has always been there to claim it. We in the accounting profession are as guilty as anybody else. We just didn't record it. Now, when the Liberals came in, they now require you to put the sale of the principal residence on the tax return and claim the principal residence exemption. Okay, so nothing has really changed as far as the tax-free status of your principal residence. You have to now put it, they're enforcing that you have to put it on the tax return. And if you don't, they threaten, we haven't seen it yet, but they threaten that they will deny you the principal residence exemption if you do not put it on your tax return. Okay. And that really stemmed from a lot of people, they went after the construction industry where somebody would buy a house in January, renovate it, move into it, not even put it on their tax return, sell it before the end of the year, and nobody was any wiser. And that was going on a lot within the rules. Nobody was breaking rules. So now the government's saying, if you sell your principal residence, you've got to put it on your tax return. You can pay your, you can claim your principal residence exemption, and everything should be fine. Now on that topic, I have wondered, I've been in the tax game for like over 30 years. And from day one, I've wondered why all these people are claiming office space in their principal residence and it never affects your tax-free status. So I see that one high on their radar coming in now, especially what's going on. I mean, they've borrowed a ton of money in the last since this COVID thing, so they have to get the tax from somewhere. So I could really see them messing around with the principal residence exemption moving forward, which is
I see. So in other words, if I'm reporting, if I own a house for 10 years and every year I report that 20% of my expenses are for home office, I should not be surprised in the future if they're going to say 20% of the capital gain on the house is going to be taxable.
It has shocked me they've never gone after that yet. So I see that coming. I've been wondering about it for 30 years, and now I just see it coming more, especially now they want declarations on your principal residence. I think they're going to go after this. And another little tip, I know when I do these tax returns, they want you to put it on the tax return. Business use of home, 20%. Itemize all your expenses, mortgage, interest, hydro, blah, blah, property taxes, and then claim the percentage. But you're also allowed just to claim an allowance, which serves the same purpose. It just doesn't document, it just doesn't tell Revenue Canada use 20% of your home. So for those of you that do use the business, a business use of your personal home, you may want to think about just using allowances instead of the forms that they want you to fill out. Nothing illegal, nothing illegal about doing that.
All right, so let's move on because we have a couple more good questions that I'd like you to talk to, and it's already and we need to move along. So
yeah, cut me off whenever.
Okay, you've talked about this one before, Jerry, and this I think is of interest to a lot of people. There's a way to use RSPs to finance the purchase of an owner-occupied property. Is that correct? How does one do that, Jerry?
Yeah, absolutely. There's two ways. One, the government has created this home buyers plan, which most of you may be aware of, where you can take the money out of the RSP for purchasing a principal residence, and there's a repayment over 15 years. So that's been in place for a while. It's not, I mean, it helps. I'm not saying it doesn't help. Some people have taken advantage of it.
That's the one where you're allowed $25,000 per person.
Yeah, and it's up to 30.
Okay, right.
So that program has always been there. It's a good program. It could be better. But also the second way is you can literally use money inside of your RSP to lend it to yourself as a mortgage on the purchase of a home. So that's a more effective way, and hopefully they expand on that. But that's the two ways that you can use your RSP. I mean, the third way is to cash out your RSP and pay the tax. But both of those ways, either through the home buyers plan or holding a mortgage inside of your RSP, that's a way to use the money without paying tax, taking it out.
Okay, Jerry, last question, and then we got to move on.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of real estate investors. We have Navtaj on tonight. We're going to be talking about flipping. So people who flip houses, one house, many houses, what are some of the biggest tax issues that they face, and how do we deal with it?
Well, flipping homes. So a lot of it, I mean, most people obviously want, when they flip homes, they want to report in the most tax advantageous way. And there's really two options. One is that we call it a capital gain. Capital gains are only 50% taxable, so not 50% tax rate. So if you bought something and sold it and you made $100,000, only half of that goes onto your tax return. And then the tax rate is applied to that half. So that's obviously very favorable. The other option, CRA, would prefer to see that transaction as what we call normal business income, that there is no reduction of half of the gain. They want to see the whole amount put on the personal or on the tax return. And then they would apply the tax rates to it. CRA will look at things like, what is the nature of your business? I mean, if your business is flipping homes, you're not going to get away with the capital gains exemption. You can try, but in the case of an audit, they probably wouldn't allow it. If you're doing as a one-off, there's a better chance that you'll be able to apply the capital gains exemption to it. I always counsel clients that if you are getting into the nature of that business, setting up a limited company was probably a good option because the corporate tax rate is only 12.5%. So if you flip those homes inside of a corporation, and if it is normal business income, you are only going to pay 12.5% corporate tax, okay, which is much better usually than your personal tax rate. So a lot of it depends on the nature of the activity, how often you're doing it. Is it a long-term hold? The shorter you hold a house, if we're flipping houses, we usually try to do that on a shorter term basis, which kind of works against us if we're trying to argue with CRA that it should be capital gain. So certainly capital gains will be more advantageous, but the system will try to steer you towards recording that as business income.
Jerry, if I buy a property, renovate it, and rent it out, can the full reno be written off in 1 year?
No, no, the full reno will be added to the cost base of the property. With that said, there are provisions of the Tax Act that allow us to directly expense costs to bring the original property, bring the property back to the original state. So for example, we buy a property, we put $100,000 into it. Technically, CRA would want to add that 100,000 to the original cost base, i.e. not put it as an expense against rental income. There are provisions of the Income Tax Act that allow you to expense a certain amount of those expenditures, assuming we're bringing that property back to its original state.
Jerry, is there a limit to how many times you can claim the principal residence exemption?
No, there's not. But the minute you get, I mean, if you claim one a year for a couple of years, they're going to challenge you. Okay, they're going to basically say, like a lot of these contractors do, they buy a house, they move into it, they renovate it, they sell it, they buy another one. So if CRA sees a trend, you're gonna have a problem unless you have a really good reason. You know, hey, I moved to this town, I had a job relocation. So there has to be a good story behind why you're using that principal residence. There is no legislated restriction on the amount of times you can use it. Okay, it's one of those gray areas where if you use it a lot, you're giving CRA a lot of ammunition to not allow you to use that.
Is there tax planning that enables mortgage investment income to be converted from passive income, which is taxable at the highest taxable level, to a taxable category that attracts a lower payable tax?
Say that again. Is there a strategy?
Terry Wellman, is there tax planning? Is there tax planning that enables mortgage investment income to be converted from passive income, which is taxable at the highest taxable level, to a lower category?
Okay, well, first of all, let's talk about tax rates. Okay, I try to simplify. There's personal and corporate. Okay, some people don't have corporations, so then we're just talking personal tax rate. Keep it very simple. We have 4 categories. Okay, so I always use the example: put 4 building blocks on top of each other. The first building block is 20%, and that's $0 to $50,000 of taxable income. The next building block is 30%, from $50,000 to $100,000 of taxable income. The next one is 40%, $100,000 to $150,000, and the last one is 50% for $150,000 over. If you can grasp those 4 building blocks, that's what I always do. I always categorize this income about, okay, where are we paying tax on it? So the higher your tax bracket, the more that income is going to attract tax. That's on the personal side. On the corporate side, as I mentioned already, on regular income, we only pay 12.5% on the first $500,000 of taxable income. If it's passive income, okay, then we pay 50%, 50. So there's not much benefit in earning passive income in a corporation because we're taxed at 50%. There's some things that happen when we pay 50%. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole here. But really, to answer that question, we have to look at the different tax brackets, either personally or is it advantageous to incorporate. I'll bring up a client that I had this week who had a bunch of rental properties, and there was some significant net rental income, and he didn't have a corporation. So it brought him, he already had a T4 from a job, and that pushed him up into the third tax bracket. So we're paying 40% on this net rental income. And I said, we need to set up a corporation, have that corporation provide a management fee to your personal rental properties to take all that income off your personal tax return and put it in the corporate tax return so we can pay 12.5%. So there's lots of strategies to play around with those tax brackets. And that's the key, is to understand where you fit into those tax brackets. If you have no other income and you're collecting mortgage interest and you're in the first bracket paying 20%, that's great. If you're already in the high bracket, you're paying 50%. So we want to strategize around that.
Okay, Jerry, this is a good time, if you would talk to us about return of capital as a preferential.
Oh yeah, well, now we're in your world, David, your private equity world. So traditionally, the investments that most people have will generate three types of returns. It's either interest, capital gains, or dividends. But when you get into the world of private equity, we have what's called return of capital, which to keep it simple, we usually find them in real estate income trusts where the entity uses depreciation on all the buildings they have to bring the entity's taxable income to zero. But we're only using depreciation to do that. There is income in there and it's being paid out to the investors. So the investors get this money, and it's called return of capital. It is not taxable. It does not go on your tax return. It is a beautiful thing. It really is. When we tax plan with people, if we can get a return of capital, we don't pay tax on that money. Now, the negative to that, any money that we receive as a return of capital reduces the cost base of your investment. So if you put $100,000 into one of these investments, if you got, I'll use 6% return of capital. So throughout the year, we'll use a 1-year example. You've received $6,000 as return of capital. You do not pay tax on that. You do not put that on your personal tax return. But your cost base of the investment is now not 100,000, it's 100 minus 6, so it's 94. So when you sell the investment, you're going to pay tax based on 94, but that's a good thing because that is a capital gain. We're only half taxed on that. So there's good tax benefits when we can use a return of capital strategy.
Okay, so Jerry, I'm going to take a couple minutes now to talk about the Centurion REIT because that's a strategy that they use, and that's a good segue.
I think that's good timing to just what I've explained about the return of capital applies to Centurion REIT. And David, I think that's a good segue into you maybe sharing your thoughts.
So that's what I'm going to do. I've got a few slides, and I'm going to ask Jerry if you would. While I'm doing this, if you could take a look through the comments and the questions, because there were some that we didn't get to, and then maybe later on in the call we can try and get back to some of them, both in the comments and the. By the way, can you see what it says? Fun facts on the screen. Can you see that?
Yeah, I see. Fun
All right. So I just prepared a few slides. So it's this. Centurion Apartment Real Estate Investment Trust, which has been around. This particular fund started in 2009. Okay, but before that, the founder. We'll talk a little bit more about the founder shortly. But I wanted to jump right in and give you a high level as to what is in this particular REIT. 70 properties. These are apartments, 24 cities, 9,000 units. 20 of these properties are in the area that most of us are very familiar with and comfortable with, GTA in southwestern Ontario, Guelph, Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, primary markets and exurbs. That's a new word for me. I learned that one today while I was doing some reading on this. I don't know if any of you guys heard of exurbs, but basically instead of suburbs, like I live in Thornhill, you can call that a suburb of Toronto. An exurb is when you go a little further out to another major center, like Guelph or Kitchener Waterloo. So that's what they call the exurbs. I don't know if they made that up. So mainly Canadian and U.S. is where their properties are located. Since the inception of the REIT, of the trust, the annualized annual return is about 13.8%, and that is since 2009. So that's a pretty remarkable return. Last couple of years have been extremely strong. Target returns, are in the range of 7 to 12% with a priority on capital preservation. And as we discussed earlier with REITs and this one as well, a good portion of the return, 2/3 of what you're going to earn is considered a return of capital versus interest. So you have a preferential tax treatment. The distributions are monthly, and the minimum investment is $25,000, and it is RSP eligible. So there was an article with Greg Romont, and if you guys want to have a copy of the article and any fun facts, again, that's fund, not fun. You can send me an email to david@rockyourmortgage.ca. Jerry, also, I would encourage you to type in your contact information in the comments too, because if people are watching you and they want to call you, they should be able to do that.
Good point.
So he talks about a boom in rental apartments. Now, again, this article was written back in January before the shit really hit the fan with COVID. So I don't know if how he might revise, but I think these perspectives are still quite relevant. And he believes, Greg Romont does, that nationally we'll be building as many new rental apartments in the next 10 years as we have in the last 2 generations. So that's a pretty significant statement. Why? Well, number one, due to immigration, the first, which we all know about, which has been a key factor to keep our real estate market buoyant over the last number of years. And when people move to Canada, I think the figures are still around 200,000 a year, and the majority of them land into the GTA. They rent for the first few years. So there's big demand for ongoing demand for rentals. Mortgage rules are tighter, so it's harder for people to get in. I remember when I first got into the mortgage business number of years ago, we were doing 0% down on a 40-year amortization. Now you need a minimum of 5 to 10% down, and if the mortgage is over $1 million, it can't be insured. So that means you need at least 20% down. So it's harder for people to get into the market. Millennials typically want to live downtown, where they cannot afford to buy. They tend to value quality of life as opposed to worrying about the future. They want it now. Okay, these are his observations again. And baby boomers have been tending to, hey, welcome, Bruno. Baby boomers as well have been tending to sell their house in the suburbs and may opt for a hassle-free lifestyle and possibly half the year somewhere warm. So they may not even continue to own. They may just enter the rental. So this is why Greg Romont believes in continued and huge demand for rentals, residential rentals. Founded, again, the REIT was founded by Greg Romont in 2009, the Centurion Apartment REIT. Bruno, I'm going to ask you to just mute yourself there if you don't mind, please, Bruno. Thank you very much. Before that, Greg worked in currencies and derivatives. He always had a passion for real estate like you, Jerry. He has an IV MBA. He was virtually retired at 31 years old. And he started buying real estate in Toronto, New York, Singapore, and Hong Kong. The original strategy was to buy, upgrade, and sell, but then when he started the REIT, the LP, which is a mutual fund trust, in 2009, the strategy changed, and they would still buy and they would upgrade, but they tend to hold them instead of selling them. So here's just a quick view of the article. We're not going to get into it. I was telling you the highlights of it. If you want the article and if you want to see the fun facts, send me an email and I will send you the information. We are going to bring up Letitia now. Letitia, how are you? I'm just going to shut your video for just a second, Bruno. Thank you for joining us. We're going to have a quick chat with Letitia, and then we're going to bring you and Navtej into the conversation. So let's unmute Letitia and ask her to join the conversation. Hey, Letitia, how's it going?
Great, thank you, David.
Letitia,
And
how you doing?
thanks Thanks, gentlemen, for the opportunity to say a few words about what's going on the insurance front. I've been working as a life and health insurance advisor for the past 10 years. I'm affiliated with a large brokerage firm. We represent the entire marketplace of insurance companies, you name it, Manulife, Sun Life, Canada Life. And we are certainly, as a society, currently going through some interesting times. And I think whether we like it or not, some people have started to think about their own mortality, whether because of COVID or because of other things going on that I'm sure you can read and hear about on the internet. So with that in mind, we are also undergoing some changes. The social distancing measures that have been imposed. Normally in the past, if a person were to apply for any life insurance or critical illness insurance, for any significant amount of coverage, you would have very likely had to subject yourself to blood work, urine tests, a full-on paramedical with a nurse coming into your home. Now, we've always had, at least in the last few years, we've had simplified issued providers in the marketplace, meaning companies that would be willing to insure clients that were harder to insure without any blood work, but for very low amounts of coverage, typically 300,000. The maximum we had seen was 500,000. Now, think of people living anywhere close to the GTA. People may have mortgages. $800,000 mortgages are not uncommon. Not to mention people who are investors and they may have multiple mortgages, and sometimes covering the balances on the mortgages. That's one of the reasons people choose to put in place life insurance. Providing for minor children in the event that one of the income earners is no longer present. That's another reason people choose to put in place insurance. I'm sorry, guys, my cat has entered the room and she's rubbing her head against my
Wondering what was going on there.
Let's see your cat.
So what I want to say, because of the current social distancing guidelines, some of the leading paramedical providers, so the how it works in the insurance company, it's not the insurance companies themselves that will send a nurse to your home. It's usually one of a number of paramedical companies who work with licensed nurses who will come to your home based on appointment and so on as part of the application process. So at least two of the major providers have said, you know, we're putting a hold on paramedicals. Now, as a result, insurance companies are like, well, we still want to do business. Now, they have looked at the risk of COVID, and virtually all companies are still willing to offer coverage, including for COVID. So if you apply today for a policy, you will be covered. Provided you get approved, you will be covered for all causes, including COVID, God forbid. And in case you're wondering, currently there are only a handful of questions that get asked if you've been in the presence of someone who tested positive, if you've experienced any of the specific COVID symptoms. They're not really, they're taking your word for it. My concern though, guys, is that as you can see, if you've been following the news at all, there is a push to large-scale testing, possibly mandatory testing. So my concern is that, you know, while currently we are in a fluid situation where companies are kind of guesstimating what the risk is, and they're coming to their own decisions as to, okay, I'm willing to offer this much coverage based on questions alone, essentially your declaration of your own health. Now, if in the course of asking you the health questions, something comes up that you had, let's say, some previous health issues, they may ask for a doctor's report, but again, they're not gonna ask for blood work necessarily. And if they do, you have the choice to, you know, say, I'd rather not. Anyway, I don't wanna go on for too long. So my concern though is that with COVID testing becoming widespread and potentially mandatory in the future, to get any coverage, you may have to subject yourself to COVID testing. You can do your own research as to how accurate these tests are or not. I know many clients would rather not have to go through that if they don't have to, because we don't know. I mean, right now you get tested positive, you're being told to quarantine, stay away from your family. Who knows what else they're going to implement? So what I'm saying, guys, is if you have been thinking of putting in place any life insurance for yourself, or possibly maybe you have life insurance, I don't know how many clients, how many of you out there know about things like critical illness insurance. If you ever were to get diagnosed with cancer, heart attack, stroke, needing even an organ transplant of any kind. Cancer, the Canadian Cancer Society is saying 1 in 2 Canadians will get diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. The statistics for all the other major conditions are, again, 40-50% throughout somebody's lifetime. So you have the option of putting in place right now on a non-medical basis, so no blood work required, up to $250,000 of critical illness insurance. When it comes to life insurance, companies are willing to go as high as $2 million of coverage with, again, no blood work being required for certain age ranges. Typically 50 plus, the limit is about 1 million that they're willing to go for with, again, no blood work being required. Everything can be done online, guys. Some of the companies offering, up to $1 million of coverage, 12 health questions. And you get yourself, literally within 48 hours, you can get yourself coverage.
So Letitia, can I ask a question? So like,
go ahead, of course, Jerry.
They literally, so they're not even, so I go in, I get insurance, they're gonna just ask me some questions about COVID and that's it, eh? So no blood, no.
That's all there is right now,
crazy.
but my concern is, this is the situation for today.
Yeah.
They're gonna fall in line with whatever the government says, because we're in a very highly regulated marketplace.
Yeah.
And right now we're in a fluid situation. So I sincerely feel we've got a short window of opportunity.
Right.
that if anybody's been considering putting in place any life insurance for yourself, any critical illness insurance, guys, you may not be worried about COVID, or you may be, everybody can make their own decisions on that. But there are other things that are happening in Toronto, in the environment, that are likely
sounds like a bit of an opportunity to get in.
Well, and again, now for critical illness insurance, there may be a few more health questions. They do ask about family history. However, again, we have access to some simplified issued providers, even for clients who may have some of their own health history or perhaps some family history. When it comes to life insurance, for example, companies don't necessarily care if, God forbid, a close family member had cancer or something. When it comes to critical illness insurance, they will ask that question, and in most cases, if you've had 2 immediate family members that have had either a stroke, heart attack, cancer, you may not even be able to apply for critical illness insurance. There are a couple of exceptions in the marketplace.
Yeah.
We can talk about that. So anyway, I felt it was important to let people know. I see Terry's asking over 60. Yeah, no, so there are policies available, technically all the way to age 85. Obviously, the older the client, the higher the premiums tend to be, and also the amount of coverage. So I actually want to, when it comes to life insurance, I think for clients over the age of 60, I know Canada Life said, maximum available will be about 500,000 with, again, no blood work being required. So the older the client, they're going to be reducing the risk. If the client is under 40, up to 2 million of coverage you can apply for on a non-medical basis. I know this was just supposed to be a short update. If you gentlemen, or if any clients want to know more about the different types of plans available.
Yeah, maybe you should put your email address in the chat bar.
Yeah, I will do so.
You can reach
out.
Put
your full contact info.
Yeah.
We'll put it up on the screen again later, as well as all the participants. But please feel free to do that. Letitia, awesome. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, so a couple of good questions in there. So Catherine's asked, what happens if you don't know your family history? There are cases like that, cases where a client could have been adopted. In that case, you would simply say unknown, and essentially they can't use it against you. It's as if there was no issue, because they can't use an unknown against you if it's a sincere unknown. We do not encourage clients to lie on applications, especially one thing you never want to lie about are things like smoking status. If they later find out if the client, and that's something, and that's something clients may be tempted to lie about, because smoker premiums are quite a bit higher than non-smoker premiums, 50-60% higher. Very not recommended to lie about that, because if God forbid the client later develops lung cancer, well, you better believe they're gonna do a little digging to find out if you were indeed a non-smoker at the time of application. Now, you could be a non-smoker today and become a smoker later on. They're not gonna hold that against you. But if at the time of the application you were a non-smoker, that's not an issue. Why wouldn't a normal, healthy person want to go through a blood test? Oh, Terry, you know what? Some people have, not too many people love getting needles poked, so some people literally have what we call white coat syndrome. I literally have a girlfriend who will faint when, every time somebody tries to take blood. So yeah, but absolutely, some clients may not have a problem with that. Somebody else, okay, so I answered the question about the family history. Are any of the premiums tax deductible, especially for critical illness? So that's a good question, Robert, and it's an interesting one. But
I can jump in. I can jump in.
Go ahead, yeah.
I can jump in. They're
Sure.
tax deductible if it's a requirement by a lender to have insurance for money lent. So if
As
they're going to
collateral.
borrow money and they require an insurance policy, then it becomes tax deductible. But when you collect on it, well, you won't collect on it. Whoever collects on it, it becomes taxable. So if you deduct the premium, you're going to pay tax on the payout. If you don't deduct the premium, then it's free.
Hey, I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Letitia, do you have to go or can you hang in for a bit? Because
No, I can hang in for a bit. Robert, there are also some strategies, particularly involving critical illness insurance, where there may be ways, and a lot of incorporated business owners see this as a potential opportunity to pull money out of the corporation on a tax-free basis. It's a bit of a complex conversation. If you want to email me, perhaps we can schedule a Zoom call and I could have that conversation with you, just because I don't want to take more time. I'm going to put in my email address on there. So
Okay,
there are some interesting strategies involving critical illness insurance in particular.
Put your email address in there. I think we need to get to Bruno and Navtac here pretty soon.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, guys, that's my info. Feel free to email me, text me, call. Not after 10 p.m. I've got my little guy. I'll have to go get him soon.
What if I have $1 million policy I need before midnight? Huh?
They can email.
I can't
They
call
can
you after
email.
10? All right, I'll call somebody else then.
Jerry, you're just a hard, never mind. Guys, thank you, gentlemen. Thanks everyone for your
Thank you, Letitia. That's awesome.
Letitia. Thank you very much.
If I have to leave early, you'll have to forgive me. I will have to go
No
attend to
problem.
my little guy.
Oh, good.
We understand.
But I'll hang in for a bit, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I want to welcome Navtaj and Bruno. Guys, I'm going to ask you to start your videos here. So Navtaj Chandoki, again, flipping for profit. He's been teaching for about 15 years now. He started the same time as I did. Some people say we look alike. I'm not sure. But he's a great guy, and he runs an excellent program helping people make a lot of money. So he's going to share some wisdom with us tonight. And also Bruno Lopez agreed to do a panel with us as well, together with Navtaj. He's an engineer, and he helps people do all kinds of things with their flips, with their purchases, whether it's rezoning, renovations, underpinning, whatever it is, he can do it. So first off, Navtaj, tell us, if you would, what do you see? Do you think there's a lot? Is it too early to jump on opportunities now? Are the opportunities coming up now, or do we have to wait another 6 months? What are your perceptions about what's happening with COVID and opportunities in the market?
First of all, I want to say thank you for inviting me over. Good evening, everybody. Let me clear my throat. Good to see everybody. The way we buy real estate is not conventional, whether it's COVID or not. What we have, I've been teaching for approximately 27 years across Canada. So what we have found is over a period of my experience that you can buy properties somewhere from 40 to 97% below market value. The word I said is 97% in Ontario. And that may gonna come a lot of shock to a lot of people because really, does it happen? How come nobody knows about it? The question is, very few people are real professional real estate investors who knows about it. And as long as COVID is concerned, the floodgate have opened for power sales, bankruptcies, foreclosures. Out of every fourth Canadian, one is unemployed. And this is going to get bad to worst. And I don't know if you remember, in March of 1983, Calgary, we had oil price of $40 a barrel. It dropped to $10 a barrel. And guess what? Calgary became a ghost town. We lost 128,000 jobs. And Calgary is going through a real estate curse. Let me be correct, more or less Alberta. Since 2014, 7 years in a row, people who bought the house for $500,000, they cannot even sell for $250,000 now. And they have mortgage of what, $700,000 or more? And again, the opportunities are endless there. It's just a matter of, you know what do you know, who do you know, and how do you can more or less benefit from it.
So Navtaj, you obviously, in addition to looking inside the province, you're also looking outside the province. I personally, I mean, I've just started attending your sessions now, so I'm just learning how you see things and so on. But I mean, should I be nervous about buying properties in a different province if I can't? I mean, how often do I have to go there and babysit them?
The way we buy properties are a little different than traditional manner. First, we don't put any money in. We have those we call joint venture partners. We give them a certain percentage to manage the property for us. So there's incentive. We don't hire property managers to pay a salary. We offer them ownership. And if they don't perform, they lose the ownership. They get nothing out of it. As long as we are concerned, we have 10 different provinces and 3 territories. And the funny thing, this one is away from Ontario, you're gonna find a lot more opportunities, a lot more higher return, and you might be able to, some of these deals you're able to bank on today. You do not sell the whole property ever. You always, if there's a good cow, we call it happy cash cow, we really sell percentage of the real estate. I'll sell 80%, I'll still keep my 20% in. I'm still getting paid, and then I'm gonna create a passive income for my life. And that's the way to do it when you are dealing with out of province properties. We buy them dirt cheap, we resell them or flip them. When we are flipping them, we do not flip 100% of the ownership. We only sell them 75%. So you're able to create a massive income right away, and then you have passive income coming in. Your investment is zero, more or less is your strategy and the analogies you have just used. And that will give you a safe environment. You are not qualified for the mortgage. You don't have to qualify. Your name will appear as a joint venture partner or on a caveat or as a lien holder on the title, and they cannot do anything to the property without your signature.
So Navjot, sorry, can you just run through it again, how you title these properties? So if
it's called joint venture partnership. So instead of holding it, just like, you know, you have different scenarios, there are a lot of partners in the deal. I will have the deed or the ownership given to the owner, but I have indirect interest on the property just like a mortgage. So I have 25% lien on the property or 25% ownership on the property, and it's done through the joint ventures.
Okay.
And that joint venture can be the title.
Navtaj, are there some tips? I mean, I know you run your classes at least once a month, and I would like you to tell us when and how people can participate. But are there any tips, like if I want to get properties in a tax sale, for example? I mean, what are some of the steps that I might take?
All these things are, you don't play with the fire with bare hands. You need to get a proper education and training, because one mistake could be very, very big mistake, and you could be in deep water and you wish you have never gone close to the water. The trouble with the tax sale property, whether it's a civil enforcement or sheriff sale or power sale, there are about 60 or 70 steps you need to take. And nobody's holding your hand. You don't have a realtor, you don't have a lawyer, you are your own. And if you don't have the funds, you are in trouble. So again, you need to learn from experts. We provide education we have a workshop to begin with, which is coming on May 30th. Cost is only $50. It's a really high value education program. And again, once they have taken it, we have our networking meetings, and then we have a program called apprenticeship. One thing we do a little differently than any other training company, I like to take all my students directly in the court office. I like to take them directly into the auctions. they need to see with their bare naked eyes. If I say that we bought a piece of property worth $200,000 for $8,000, you're gonna say, what? Where is the property? Can you show it to me, please? Instead of saying that we believe in 100% full disclosure. If I tell you this is a piece of property worth $200,000 and we got it for $8,000, here is the address, here's the name of the city, please call the city, it's a public record, it'll never change.
So is that a tax sale property then?
These are the tax lien properties all across Canada and all the territories.
Okay. So is that where you buy the bulk of your properties?
No, we have about 12 different techniques.
Okay.
Our main focus is two words: desperate or distress. We do not buy property because I like it. For me, the only piece of property I'm going to buy where I'm going to live of my choice. The rest of the investment properties, I'm out there to make a killing. I'm out there to make a profit. And I don't care if the property is in Thunder Bay or properties in Ottawa. I'm going to buy it from the comfort of my home. The chances are I'm not going to put any money in the deal. I got other investors who will go in, do all the due diligence, and I don't mind sharing the profit with them. First, I train them, and they have to follow certain steps. And if all the steps are followed through, everything is good.
Interesting.
Okay, Navtaj, I want to introduce Bruno now, who I met at your session back when people were allowed to leave their houses. That was in March, and I was really, really impressed with what Bruno was talking about. Bruno, welcome. Tell us a little bit about what you do, please.
Well, good night to everybody. Yeah, and thank you to get introduced to this apparently big family of brothers. Yeah, so MXL, it's actually a group of companies that I started a few years ago. I started MXL Engineering, which was a couple engineers with a dream. So all of a sudden, we are already a bunch of engineers and architects. I expand my business to some construction companies, which are specialized companies. We try to be like a boutique shop, so it's a little bit of it's a different scenario from where you have your regular architect that deal with a structural engineer here, a mechanical engineer there. There is lack of let's say coordination so many times, and you know what, people get a little bit frustrated. What we'll try to do here is everything in-house, so it funnels in through me on the way in, it funnels through me on the way out. We have many different kind of projects, again, from top-ups, additions, rear, front, sides, garages, even sheds, believe it or not. So no small project is not a project. Every project is a project. And of course, some of them, they are quite challenged. This particular project that we brought on into the presentation a couple of months ago, yeah, this was actually a very challenging project, and we have to see sometimes these situations on overarching.
Bruno,
so when
Bruno, I just wanted, so
Yep.
This is the one where you converted a single family home to a 7-plex?
Correct.
Okay,
correct.
so that's a great story. So we definitely want to hear about that. Please tell us about that.
So in terms of investors, and I'm myself an investor, believe it or not, I'm not yet like Navtaj that I can spread along the province. But anyway, again, looking for deals, there are a couple of things that people have to look for. So regardless if it's just a single, it's a detached, a semi-detached, whatever it is, there are a couple of things that we have to actually look. It's like real estate, say location, location, location. On my end, what I tell my clients is not just location, but within the location, there are a couple of things. So if it's a property in Toronto, we have to look if it's on a ravine, because the ravine properties are very nice, very beautiful, but sometimes you have to deal with Toronto ravines, and you have to do with TRCA, which is the Toronto Region Conservation Authority. So these are two things that we have to keep in mind before we even look for a property. So now coming to these properties that you can actually make the flip, because it's very common to actually find rooming houses in Toronto. Believe it or not, I've dealt with a few. However, the city is trying to take out these rooming houses and actually offer more small little condos. So I know as well buildings owners that they own buildings, and they actually turning their own building into apartment buildings, so they can partially sell part of the building. So this could be one of these cases. So these are multiple opportunities that actually they develop in chain reaction. So first you have to look for a property that actually it's on a very dense area. And it's not difficult to actually for the common user to go on the Toronto committee website. And if you look at the committee, past committee for certain areas, especially on these more dense areas, you'll find what was approved in the past. So sometimes when you look for a property and you think this is a great deal, I'm just gonna transform this from a single unit into a 2 or a 3 or 4, whatever many units you wanna turn into, you should look for a place or an area that somebody cracked the egg. If you want to crack the egg, it's very difficult. And the reason being is that you have a long process until you go to committee. So when you submit your plans to the committee, the plans, they actually get sent to all the staff. And we meaning forestry, planning, transportation, engineering. So everybody has their own little 10 cents to add to the comments to the proposal that you submit to committee. So this is the very first battle that you have to deal with, and don't get discouraged because up to date, thank God, I only lost one time in committee, but the time that I went there, I knew I was gonna lose, so it was already a loss. But some people get frustrated with the timelines and the comments, they don't come in, and it's like a dragging process. So if you lose at committee, you always have now the old OMB, which is the Toronto Board of Appeal now. So it's a second stage. On the second stage, we are not guarded, I would say, by engineers or architects. At this point in time, you have to take a lawyer. So in saying this, my strategy for this one was actually, and I provided drawings, I don't know if you're able to put it up, even if you look just at the very first page, it talks a little bit about the areas. So this is a critical point, and what I point to most of my clients that they are developers, because again, I get all kinds of clients from the single family, from the young couple, again, many different scenarios. So this particular one, of course, the vision is for someone that wants to develop and make this a real income property, or at least, just develop and potentially sell it. What we have there, it's a little summary, and if you scroll down just a tiny bit more, so we can see all the frames at the bottom. So there is one little one in the middle that says existing 2 residential units as per last issued permit, and then proposed 7 residential units. Average unit area is about 714 feet. So again, this is on the 700, 800 square feet little units. They are 2 bedrooms. It's like really a condo style. So the little trick that we had to play on this one was that the homeowner, because this is a very lengthy process, we had to start these as converting this single dwelling to a 2 unit. And why? Because every single property downtown Toronto right now, they are able to be transformed into a 2 unit with no development charges. This is the key. So with no development charges, you can have 2 units, regardless if you have a bungalow, 2-story or a 3-story, if it's detached, semi-detached, whatever it is. So this is the very first thing. So while you have this 2 unit, and the trick is trying to make the inside of the 2 units start to look alike to what you want to further develop. And the reason being is because for a 2 unit, it's fairly easy to get a permit, and at least you start construction. So while you're doing the construction for this 2 unit, we are working on the 7-plex. So the 7-plex, again, it triggers a lot of so I would say bylaws. And some of these bylaws are probably older than all of us together. It's just crazy. So they pull some bylaws from God knows their yellow books or so that we don't know. Again, each particular neighborhood, there is the Toronto zone bylaw. So there is a zoning for the Toronto wide, and then every neighborhood, they'll have their own bylaws and a lot of exceptions. So again, it's like a maze. So the biggest problem that we have here, or I'll say not problem, but challenge, if you look at the board there, one where it says floor space index, On that particular area, it's allowed 60%, which is close to 2,000 square feet. By the time we develop the 7 units, 3-story, we are at 5,000 square feet. So we are at 162%. So that's where the money is. The money is on FSI, floor space index, because lot coverage is very nice that you should cover your lot to the max of your ability. But however, floor space index, it's actually the livable space. So every square foot that you have on your house that is heated, that you can use it as livable space. So this is what we have to fight for. Actually, these drawings were initially, or the project was set to be actually 8 apartments. If you can scroll down the page and look at the very last one, the 3rd floor. Again, we try to prepare, and this is not the last fight. So the owner actually, we developed this as 7 because at committee there was a little bit of grief, and there was a neighbor that showed up that didn't like the way the building was on the 3rd floor. But the reality is that this is almost a low-rise building, right? It's the introduction to low-rise. So can we expand this 3rd floor and make it an 8 unit? It's doable, but it's another war. And it's the kind of war that probably we can work and take it to the next level, because even if committee denies it, we can go to the next level, which is the Toronto Board of Appeal. And at that point, it's lawyers against lawyers. Probably you can even squeeze another unit. So this is to take advantage to the max of the existing building. So what happens is probably some of these particular, I would say, rooms or so, they were not used correctly, or it was in a different manner, right? So it was a lot of storage, a lot of closets. Again, it's a way to maximize. Another couple key factors, again, it's the trees that you have on these particular properties. So not on this one, but I had on these other properties where forestry actually deny to cut trees. So make sure when you look at these properties, they are very, how do I say, it's a temptation to go and buy them. But so you see the side stairs on the drawing, the side emergency stairs, there was actually 2 trees on that particular location. Luckily enough, they were not like the big protected trees, so we were able to take them down and install the stairs. But per se, if this house has these trees that they are like very important, and they're, let's say, century trees or so, you cannot take them down, forget about your project. Like whatever you're trying to build, you cannot build it anymore. So on the site plan, if you move the screen a little bit further up.
Like here?
Yes. So if you see on the bottom side of the house towards the left, that's where the emergency stairs are. So we have 2 sets of stairs because it's more than 4 units. So you need 2 entrances. So we have one inside the house on the let's say on the north side as we look at to the drawing, and we have one on the south side. So the south side is actually metal stairs, exterior, like you see it in New York and all over in Toronto. It's very common. The other set of stairs is actually on the north side, and it's inside. The stairs at the front, they only serve the main floor. So you know. Some other things, and very interesting, it's parking, and believe it or not, bicycle parking. At the rear of the building, we have to put 4 bicycle parking, believe it or not. It's something that I actually agree with. And even if we have to put more, we'll put more. But whatever turns a little bit illogical is that they ask us for 4 or 5, but at the end we supplied 3 for bicycles. And they were asking us 7 parking spaces. This is another trick, and we have to be very, very careful. Actually, we went to the CBO, the Chief Building Officer, to get these plans approved. There was so much push and pull. We went through the regular channels. We went from the examiner up to the manager, up to the, there was another fellow, which is the deputy CBO, and then the CBO. And the reason being is that we need 7 parking. So out of the 7 parking, then they negotiate and they said, okay, we are okay with 5. But where do I have 5 parking here? I cannot put it on the roof. I cannot make an underground garage. So they have a rule that you have to find parking 300 meters away. But that 300 meters away, it doesn't say if it's on a straight line or is following Google Maps. So as you see on the very first page as well, it shows the location of the building and there are a few circles there. So this is just the key plan. But what I've done, actually, if you put a little bit to the bottom, on the left side of the screen. So what I've done, I did a circle of a radius of 300 meters, and believe it or not, I could find this fellow that owned a property facing a major street there, which is Roncesvalles Avenue. And at the rear, this guy actually had 11 parking spaces. Within his own property, he had a residential mix as well. I think he had 4 or 5. So he had about 6 spots left. Of course, we enter an agreement. Again, this is just for the looks, and even the city, they know. But anyway, we have to play their game. We signed an agreement, a lease agreement for 5 spaces. And anyway, we got away without the parking. So me talking with a transportation fellow, he actually said that he would require a study, and that study would have to be done by an independent person, actually to provide provide us information to actually ding us with a big bill, because when you are not able to provide parking, you can actually pay the fine in lieu. But guess what? These guys were trying to play the fine for almost $100,000 per spot. So these are the kind of games. And again, knowing all this information, that's why the same way they have the push and pull, and they try always to put it against the wall, you know what? I have this old saying that I learned a long time ago in my career: every boss has a boss. So if you're not happy with the person that you deal with, you know what? Go one step above and try to push them. Because at the end of the day, some of the rules are not clear cut. Toronto, believe it or not, they have bylaws, but parallel with bylaws, they have a lot of guidelines. And these guidelines, they are not black and white. It's almost like a wish list. So many times you actually have to fight against these wish lists. And again, it's a little bit of a challenge every project, but this particular one again was to the point where, like I spoke with you before, and I can make it open to everybody. I think the owner took a little bit of a hard hit on this one. It took a lot of his own health and well-being. They are a young couple, and this property is currently for sale as is. What does it mean? If you guys have a few $100,000 to actually go and buy the permits and buy the property, this is ready to continue. Right now, I believe it's close to installation stage or so. So it's on the process where we cannot cover anymore without being fully inspected for what the permit was granted for, which is granted, but it needs to be taken off the city. So anyway,
I just want to add something to that. As soon as you get to 5 units and above, you enter a new category with
4
financing. No, it's 5.
Oh, financing, but I'm saying 4 is building code, is a separate story.
Okay, so that's a separate issue. I'm talking about financing. You can get up to 85% CMHC insured financing on a multi-unit, 5 units and up property at low rates. So you're adding additional value on top of everything else by being able to attract very good financing.
I'm telling you, I wish I would have a few billion spare. Truly, this is one of, like Navtash said, milking cows. It's probably not a little investment and just work out of zero investment. No, this is a serious investment. But again, it's actually, you know, the few months ago, I never expect the owner to say, you know what, I'm fed up with this one. It was a couple of years fight or so. So hey, some people, they get to the point where say, you know what, sayonara.
Bruno, what happens when the lease expires for those 5 parking spots? Do they have a problem with the?
I don't think so. To be honest, this is just give me the damn permit. That's usually what I say. I do what I need to do to get the damn paper. After I get the paper, build it and see you later. Everybody will forget about the parkings. this is just to pass this building permit stage. As soon as you got building permit, a lot of things get a little bit bent and twist out of shape. Believe it or not, examiners are tough. Staff that make comments for these applications are tough as well. Whenever it comes to inspectors, most of these inspectors are actually quite experienced, and they allow you not to get out of building code, but sometimes, so many times you don't go strictly black and white. You still have a little bit of room to play around, I would say.
So is there value to go in and finish the job, scoop it up and finish the job?
Actually, that is, and like I was talking before, there are a couple. I got actually questioned by two different people that I believe they were, I don't know if mortgage brokers, that they were interested in the property, and of course, it's everything is about numbers, right? So there was a question if it's listed on MLS. I believe right now it's just a word of mouth to a couple people, and I'm one of them that knows about it. But for sure, soon it's going to be on MLS, I guess.
Okay, there's a couple of questions for you, Bruno. One, are city inspectors physically attending to view and sign off of work? And also, do you work outside of the GTA?
Mm-hmm.
And this process, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'll probably answer a couple of them. Sure. before I run out of space on my memory. So inspectors, yes, they are out there now. However, as you might know, the ministry actually sent out back to work mandatory. Was it this past week? Early this past week. So this especially is for small towns where everybody was afraid of everything, and for these government workers, it's really nice to be at home doing nothing and getting paid. Right now, they are mandated to go to work. However, this is the caveat. For regular inspections, if the house is a new house, they should be okay to go. If the house has people living on it, and some of them are like just structural permits, so this means interior alterations, they won't go inside. However, if you are on your final interior inspection, so you can get granted your license to actually move into the house, they will make arrangements because it's mandatory for them to actually do that. And reason being is because big builders, developers, they have houses with the key in hands, ready to get delivered. And they just push everybody to, somebody has to come out and say, yes, the house is good, let's move in. If I go outside GTA, yes, I go up north to Cottage Country. Again, depending on the project. And so nowadays it's fairly easy for me as a designer to actually develop and create a meeting, like even a conference call or something. It's fairly easy. Emails, people nowadays are very savvy, right? They have a good knowledge of computer. They can use a PDF, make comments on PDFs. If I have physically to go, yes, I've been all the way to Niagara, to a low-rise building where I design a glass railing. I go up north Cottage Country where I have, again, some funny, interesting projects on lakes. And so people really like to spend some money, and I'm here to help them spend the money. I go all over. If the project, let's say if it's in Ottawa, maybe I'm not able to go out there, but within a fair distance of an hour and a half, I'm okay to go around.
Bruno, are you able to share what that property is selling for?
To be honest, I don't know, but if you guys are really keen to have that information, I might contact the owner and share it tomorrow with Jerry or one of you guys.
Well, maybe you can contact the owner and get back to me, because I wouldn't mind knowing what it's worth.
Yeah, for sure. I can get you at least a good a hint of what he's looking for.
Okay, guys, snap a photo of all the contact information. A few people have been asking for it. Question. Let's go back to Nav for a second. Navtaj, people are asking, how are you delivering? And then we'll come back to Bruno. And also there's some more tax questions for Jerry. Navtash, how are you delivering your training now? And people are asking about because of COVID, and also about costs. Can you please comment?
Yes. All the training is done online, just like this call, Zoom. The cost is about $50, 3-hour training. And we send you a PDF file for the manual. You follow instructions. 3 hours are pure education, and barely about 5 minutes of giving information about other products and services we offer you. I've been very fortunate when I met David. We launched our networking club, mastermind networking meetings since April 2005, and it has been running successfully every month. Now we have grown to about 17 or 18,000 members all across Canada. So it's a good network to join if you want to join that one as well, though. The training, as I said, is interactive, just like what we are doing right now. But you get to know a lot of stuff which you have never known. One thing I like to talk to you quickly about as my gift to all of you. Since it started raining, if your basement is leaking, please do not spend a dime of your money. You are eligible to get forgivable grant from the federal and municipal that you can put a sump pump and a backup wall at no cost to you. There are about 275 different grants available for every homeowner. So this is my little gift to all of you. Is also known as, in case you want to Google it, is also known as flood protection plan. I've written several different books. One of the books I have, which is the highest demand, is my credit repair. How do you boost your credit? How to take minimum 750 beacon score. Second book is about how to get forgivable real estate grants. And most of you may or may not be aware of it. When you want to buy your first piece of property in Canada, you might be eligible to get forgivable down payment. Absolutely forgivable. Third program I'd like to mention to you, if you guys happen to have young kids who want to move to downtown Toronto in the nice condos, there are programs available where people with low income can get a nice condo with a 5% down payment, and the 15% of the down payment is financed by City of Toronto at the rate of 0%. And these programs are available all across Canada. And third book I've written about is about getting grant for businesses. If you're starting a business, there is all kind of information available for you, free coaching, free mentoring from the experts, and also you get a coach. And plus you get maybe $5,000 to $30,000 free money. So these are the books I've written about it. These are benefits for all the Canadian taxpayers. If you're going to hire somebody for a small business, there's a wage subsidy program. There are all kinds of different programs available. And unfortunately, most of us who run small business or medium-sized business do not get to take advantage of this thing.
Okay, so Navtaj, that's amazing. Your contact information is on the screen. People can find out more about the training at flippingforprofit.ca. I just want to mention I appreciate you inviting me to speak at your events last 3 months and introducing me to a lot of people in your network. So we're very pleased to have the opportunity to do the same with you. Bruno, there was a question. It sounds, somebody commented that the process and all that you do sounds very complicated. Is it very expensive?
Well, expensive it is upfront, but on the long term, it's very cheap compared to what you can get. So the process, let me put it this way bluntly. Any kind of permit that you do this kind of transformation, you expect to have at a minimum 8 months period. And why so? So I would say the first 2-3 months, it's for the zoning review. After the zoning review, go to committee. Committee of adjustments is a waiting period, average 4 months to have the hearing. And after you have the hearing, you have to have the 20 days that you have to wait until somebody complains about the decision, in case the decision is favorable. pass this committee, and if nobody complains, you come back to zoning, get the zoning certificate, work out the drawings, and go for building permit. Building permit drawings, at this stage, you're going to take another couple months because there is always some issue things. So in the big scheme, you probably get yourself prepared for a good 8 to 12 months. In terms of costs, the design fees for something like this goes slightly higher than a regular home. And the reason being is when you come into this multiplex, you are already on a different ball game. So you are almost designing for commercial because you're going to need the fire, you're going to need electrical plans. It's a lot of stuff. So you're talking plans like these, a full set of plans ready for zoning, and then including the building permit, you are talking easily about 20 something thousand dollars. Committee fees, when it comes to these ones, you pay about $5,000-6,000 if not mistaken. The biggest fee, and that's why this homeowner now it's a little bit like that's the end of it, it's the development fees. So development fees, they go about rule of thumb close to $50,000 per unit. So how does it go? If you have a bachelor, a 1-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, or more than 2-bedroom, they escalate in price. They start at, if not mistaken, 32,000, but I can find the list and send it to you guys. It goes like 30, 40 something, and the highest is 50,000 and 50 something thousand dollars. So again, it's not easy because up front you have to have $200,000 or $300,000 or so just to pay on development fees alone, let alone the building and all the reno.
Okay, very good. Thanks. Thanks again, Bruno. I'll just comment. And then we'll go to Jerry to address. There's a comment. If you sign on a joint venture, if you sign by Adele, will affect you in the future. If you sign personally, then yes, it'll show up on your credit. If you sign personally for any mortgage debt. Jerry, there were some other questions. You want to try and tackle some of the other questions?
Yeah, I see them here. I'll go quick. So one question, can vehicle expense be calculated per kilometer, or does one have to do a percentage of use while tracking all the gas and vehicle expense? The per kilometer rate is only available if you pay an employee. Okay, so you as the owner of a business technically can't use a per kilometer rate, even though a lot of people do it. CRA could disallow it because technically you're not allowed to do it. So as an owner of a business, you're supposed to show all your gas, all your vehicle expenses, show them the percentage of use and calculate it that way. So use the per kilometer only for an employee. I see another one here. Can you explain more on money inside RSP for mortgage? I'll keep that answer quick because I could spend a long time on this answer. First of all, an RSP is not an investment, okay? An RSP is just a bag that holds investments. So one of the investments you can hold in that bag is a mortgage. And you can lend that mortgage to a third party. We call that an arm's length mortgage, or you can lend it to yourself. We call that a non-arm's length mortgage. So those opportunities exist. There's a lot you need to know if you're going to do that. Now is not the time, but if you're interested in that, I put my phone number and email on the chat bar, and I think it's been on the screen. So call me if you want more information on that. Another question, does that only apply to your primary residence? I'm assuming they're saying RSP and a mortgage in an RSP, or does taking money out of your RSP apply to a second resident like a mortgage? You can use it on a cottage, so it doesn't have to be your primary residence. And again, you're saying taking money out of the RSP. Think of it more that you're just holding your own investment inside of your RSP instead of taking money out of the RSP. So if you take money out of the RSP, you got to pay tax on it. So we're using these mechanisms to use the money inside of your RSP to finance either your principal residence or your cottage or your rental property, or you lend it out as a mortgage to a third party. So I think that's the ones that apply to me.
Letitia, what do you think, Letitia? Are people going to be allowed out of their houses soon?
Are they going to be allowed out of their houses? Ha ha ha! You're a joker.
You got your finger on the pulse. What do you think? Is this are we near the finish line here on this all this restrictions?
Well, they're already talking about there being a second pandemic. So my sincere feelings. Thanks for asking, David. I mean, this is just personal opinion based on what I've been, looking into. I think we're gonna see a temporary easing of measures, but there's a very good chance that they're gonna come down on us hard again in the fall. I know, again, it's just speculation, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if, again, in the fall, we're going to be hit with a second wave. I mean, they've been priming the pump with this kind of conversation. So I think we should all, enjoy our summer as much as we can, and make plans. Really, I think this is a great time to set ourselves up as well as possible, structurally for those of you who have corporations, or really kind of clean house. And there's a lot more I could say on that, but this is a business call.
That's a different webinar, right?
There have been some benefits to all this. I mean, we're all living lives differently now, and
For sure.
we've learned how to relax and step back a bit and enjoy the moment and enjoy our family. So, who knows what happens? I think a lot will depend on how these statistics play out as they open the doors a bit and let us out.
Well, the statistics are very easily manipulatable.
I knew you. I was giving you an opportunity.
Well, I
there.
think it's been a positive experience for many. I know Navtaj has been he's been taking up walking, and he's been enjoying some meditation and different things, right, Nav?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
So it's much better being at home instead of hustling, and I learned the new technology. I don't have to travel, and live in the plains all the time. I'm like a gypsy. Sometimes I have to cover 7 to 10 cities in 4 days. So starting from all the way to East Coast, all the way to Western Canada, all the Maritimes to Victoria, or even gone to some of the territories on Yukon. So now this is all good. So sitting in the comfort of your home is nothing like it.
Yeah.
I think we all have the ability to add some good technology to our business models. I know now I run my tax practice online, so I could literally run my whole tax practice. Not that I want to, but I could. Out of a 100 square foot office, I could run my whole tax practice. But I still enjoy the human touch and the human meeting of people. So.
And well, they say change brings about opportunity, and I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity, and that's what these types of meetings are about. So I just wanted to thank all of you for contributing. Nav, Taj, Bruno, Letitia, my business partner and co-host Jerry, for all of your tax information and real estate flipping and insurance and all that. And thanks all of you at home who tuned in and asked all your great questions. Jerry, the last one we wanted to ask people was whether they like this time change, because we figured Sunday afternoons or Sunday mornings, rather, now that the weather's warming up.
Yeah, I mean, I personally kind of like the, last weekend was a long weekend, and that made us make a decision to move it from Sunday to Tuesday. I kind of like Tuesdays. Weekends are coming up. Summer's here. They're letting us out of the house. But I'm curious if people are watching, if they give us a preference, either a weekday or a weekend. And on closing, I would also like to offer, if anybody, I've created a nice little book here, if everybody can see it, it's a good explanation of how the investment marketplace works. So I put all my thoughts down in a booklet. If anybody wants it, just send me an email and I'll send it out to you. So, but yeah, let's see what people think, whether it's Tuesday or Sunday.
All right. Well, there we are. Weekday from weekday, weekend. Oh, we have somebody.
No.
Definitely. Okay. Well, listen, we record all these, and in all of our emails, we put a link to our YouTube channel. So if you do happen to miss it, you can always watch it on the replay. Thanks, everybody. More notice. Yes, we will try and give more notice. Don't hesitate to reach out to any of the people. again, we look forward to hearing from you all. And there's one more time as our contact information. Bye, everybody. Have a great night, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Bye, everyone. Thanks
Bye-bye.
again,
Thanks.
David,
Bye.
Good one.
Jerry,
Good night, everybody.
everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.